Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative.
They're asking me about everything, local, state, federal, all the time. How do I do this? How do I do that? Why can't I get a speed hump? What's going on with the consent decree? Hey y'all, welcome to Ask Attica. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning. Hey y'all, welcome to our first episode of Ask Attica for 2026. I'm excited to have you here. We, of course, are at Black Coffee #2 in the Goodwill Opportunity Center. We're always grateful to them for allowing us the space to host the podcast here. Make sure you check out Goodwill Opportunity Center on Tuesdays for their resource day. In fact, the Parkland Library, Friends of the Parkland Library, we're having a book sale here on Tuesday, January 20th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we'd love for you to come visit us. We'll have more information about that soon. But today I'm excited about our special guest. Um, what can I say? Well, first of all, our special guest is with the United Way, President and CEO of the United Way, which I've been connected to the United Way since forever, for a long time as a Metro Council member, very supportive of the United Way, and of course as a state representative. But today we have the President and CEO, Ms. Adria Johnson. Thank you for joining us on Ask Attica.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, my first guest of the new year. This is very exciting. So, I of course have my questions ready for you, but there's a question I like to ask people, especially it's a new year and we've got all these different things going on and feelings going on. But I'd love to know what's bringing you joy today.
Oh gosh. Well, I will say, I think when I walked in here, what immediately gave me joy was being in this space of Black Coffee. I know we'll get into, the work of the organization and how we support community, but in making our shift in how we make impact in community, some of the programming that we have leaned into is programming that is intended to be more transformational. And so one of those programs that we began to support was Fund Black Founders, really wanting to support Black entrepreneurs. And so Black Coffee was one of those organizations that we invested in and that we take great pride in watching it grow its second location here. So, to walk in um, and just to see kind of the fruits of your labor and your team's labor playing out in this way, it means a lot. So that is giving me joy in this moment.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, you all do a lot. So do you get those opportunities to see? I mean, and it wouldn't be fair to say all of your work, right? Because you do so much. But do you get those opportunities to see the fruits of your labor?
We do, but we also, I think, have reasonable expectations, right? I mean, again, as I mentioned, we've been intentional at saying that we want to get out of transactional investing and transactional support. Not that there isn't a need for that, but we want to, get in the space of really moving the needle, being able to look over time. And so I say that to say that it's going to take sustained commitment and investment to see these things through. That's longer term work.
Yes.
That's not always the way this plays out in supporting communities. And so while I hope to have these moments like this where I can see evidence, a little more quickly, I also am fine to know that I may not see it, right?
Yes.
But I've planted the seed, and I trust that that seed is going to bloom in a mighty way.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Wow, that sounds like the work of ancestors too, right? That there's so much that our ancestors did so that we could be here today. And they knew they would never see the fruits of that labor.
That's right.
But they knew we'd be here.
That's right.
That's beautiful.
That's right.
Thank you for that.
And I feel like that's our responsibility, especially if you are in a leadership responsibility, that you have been entrusted to lead a movement, people, organization, what have you, toward a greater cause. I mean, shame on us if we don't carry that responsibility in the way that it was intended.
That's right.
Or should be intended.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So my first question really digs into the work that y'all do at United Way.
Yes.
So as folks may know, Metro United Way talks about building thriving kids, strong households, and an equitable community. So how do these priorities shape your strategy in our region with such diverse needs?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I think it's important just to ground people in, we are one of 950 United Ways that exist across the globe, right? And I say globe because it is a global network
Okay.
of local United Ways that exist across communities to be responsive to what those communities need. And so I mention that because United Way Worldwide is kind of the mothership, right,
Okay.
that is guiding us all. And there's always been some attempt to categorize and organize the work that takes place in local United Ways across community. So if United Way kind of organizes all of the work that happens around the world in buckets of financial success or financial security, healthy communities, healthy children. I may be not using that terminology exactly right. Youth opportunity, I think, is how they phrase it, and then community resilience. And so, in keeping with that kind of larger umbrella, most communities try and organize the work that they do around those categories. One, for just the alignment and consistency, but also, as you said in the question, I mean, the needs are multifaceted, the needs are varied. But for us, instead of being so broadly splashed that we're not as effective as we could be, we were intentional a few years back at stepping back and saying, okay, what is most pressing in our community? What is the interconnectedness that we need to maintain prominence around? But how do we get ourselves organized in a way that allow us to have a depth of strategy to support that more transformational impact that we're making? And so, the pillars of thriving kids, strong households, and an equitable community in some ways continue to just evolve from kind of how we've always organized our work. When I stepped in 2018, we were doing, I think, early care and education and youth success and healthy lives and I think financial empowerment, financial independence. So it's not uncommon to the framework that we've always operated in, but it is intentional in helping to give elevation and prominence to those areas where we feel are most pressing for us to keep our foot on the gas, so to speak.
Thank you for that. You said a couple of things that prompted me to ask you
Yeah,
a couple of more
of course.
questions that
Yes.
I didn't send in advance.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay,
Honestly,
good.
I didn't look at them.
Okay, good. Yay.
It, it needs to be real,
I
right?
understand. I understand. Um, but you talked about United Way being worldwide,
Yes.
being global. You're called Metro United Way.
Yes.
So what does that mean? What's the metro
So
area?
our service area is 7 counties. We
Okay.
serve 2 states, and a lot of people don't realize that also. We do serve Kentucky and Indiana.
Okay.
So, of course, Jefferson County
Yes.
is our most populous area within our service region, but our service region encompasses Jefferson, Shelby, Bullitt, and Oldham counties here on the
Okay.
Kentucky side, and Clark, Floyd, and Harrison counties in southern Indiana.
Okay.
And so as you look across the globe and you look at United Ways, most of them have are supporting more than one county, more than one geographic area. Some are spanning multiple states like we are, and that's where the metro comes in. Of course, we have the ability to, have some influence in our name of the organization, keeping that United Way piece. But metro, the greater, metro is kind of a common
Yes.
name for this region. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I knew that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you mentioned is not a shift, but the work transforms, right,
Yes.
over time.
Yes.
So how do you determine what your focus will be?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, we certainly always want to not be so locked in that we can't be nimble and responsive to the community. I think that's part of what people see value in United Way and how they experience United Way. Even as I think about the most recent concerns that we had over SNAP benefits being on hold and our ability to quickly, within just 48, 72 hours, stand up a response to that. So that will always be an element. And I think when I talked about that overarching umbrella that Worldwide has around community resilience, being able to be responsive in times of community disasters or emerging needs, like such as the food insecurity, that will always be an element. But for us, that is why we have those pillars, quite frankly, is to keep us, one, continuing to maintain focus on what we have prioritized and what our strategic plan is driving us towards. Otherwise, we would find ourselves spread very thin very quickly and also perhaps not as effective because you are spread so broadly. So that's the purpose. It really is to keep elevated the goals that we have around those areas, and so that we stay the course, so to speak, and stay true to those pillars, but again, not so locked in that we can't pivot as needed.
That's right. So you mentioned the SNAP benefits crisis that happened in 2025.
Yes.
So Congress is back in session.
Yes.
The continuing resolution that they passed is on my birthday, January 30th. So are you all prepared for what may happen either way?
Yeah, we keep a pretty close finger on the pulse around multiple areas, but certainly with the volatility that we have seen with public policies of late, we're even more attuned to what is happening and gearing up for what we may need to do to continue to kind of fill in the gaps, so to speak, or recognize, what is happening and what can we do to mobilize a response around that. So we are certainly keeping a very watchful eye on that and a few other areas that are happening.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So before we take a break,
Yes.
I have one
Yes.
more question for you. So it kind of speaks to the question I asked about how you determine your focus, but you may want to dig a little bit deeper
Yes,
into it.
of course.
So what data do you use to decide where to focus your partnerships and resources?
Yeah, so I'll back up just a minute because when we began to make our shift away from being what I think a lot of people know United Ways across the nation, or their familiarity with them was more of a community chest. And, if you look back in our 108-year history, we certainly operated more true to that. And I think that goes back to the beginnings of United Ways and why they were formed. And that was to be a resource that could generate resources for those that were on the front line dealing with community conditions. And so there is certainly value and need to continue to provide that monetary investment that other organizations need to fulfill their missions and to serve in the way communities need them to. But I mentioned that because as we made that shift after immersing ourselves in a variety of data sets, right? Like we manage the 211 line that exists in this community. A lot of people don't know what that is. It is the non-emergency version of 911. So any need or area that you are confronted with in your life that you need just help in navigating, it's just foreign to you, or you just don't know where to turn, you can call that line and be connected to resources and supports in that area, whatever that is. I'm new to community and I need to find a child care center. I'm at a point in life where my parents are beginning to age and I don't know what caring for them is like. But that data, we harness the data that comes in through those calls, which tell us where are needs most prevalent, who is making that call, what areas of town are they coming from, and so that's a consistent data set that we lean into along with a lot of community level data that is produced by others. And so when we began to make our shift around changing our business model, I mean, we looked at everything from the data that JCPS has on academic success and what's happening in the classroom. We look at data coming from the partners that are operating in the childcare system to find out where do we have childcare deserts. We're looking at public health data to see how well are people faring with just their own health. We're looking at census data to see where do we have poverty and, where are those concentrations? Are there shifting demographics within those poverty ranks? So we look at all of that, and we looked at all of that back then to say, okay, what are the needs that are presenting in this community that have been most persistent, that are affecting the largest swath of our population? And so that is consistent data that we look to continue to rely on and lean into. And so that is ongoing. And so that whole data driven is core to who we are. We don't move in an arbitrary way. We are moving in a very intentional way in response to what the data is telling us around what is happening in community.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Sounds like you get your information from a lot of
different sources.
Yes, a lot of sources. Awesome. All right, y'all. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna continue our conversation. And be sure if you want to advertise with Stay Live Streams, get in touch because everything that you advertise that goes to Stay Live Streams, not Ask Attica. All right, we'll see you back in a couple of minutes.
Healthy Beginnings Connect Us offers resources, classes, and more. Visit us at 1141 South 2nd Street or www.blackbirthjustice.org.
Healthy Beginnings Connect Us empowers families to thrive through holistic well-being, early child development, and accessible health care.
We are committed to fostering connections, knowledge sharing, and support networks that enhance the physical, mental, and emotional health of children, parents, and caregivers.
By building bridges between healthcare providers, social services organizations, educators, and families.
We aspire to create a world where every child experiences a healthy and nurturing start.
Setting the foundation for a brighter future.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Ask Attica. If you saw what was happening behind the scenes during the break, you'd be cracking up. But we're back with our special guest, Adria Johnson, with Metro United Way President and CEO
Yeah.
of Metro United Way. So I want to continue with the questions
Yes.
that I have for you. Appreciate you going with the flow because when you
Oh,
say
yeah.
something, other questions come up
Of
for
course.
me.
No.
Excellent.
Only way to be.
That's right. So organizations are increasingly recognizing that social determinants like housing, food access, which you talked about, economic stability, and education are tied to overall community safety and well-being. How does Metro United Way's work connect these factors to long-term solutions, especially through tools like you mentioned, 211 and the United Community Systems?
Well, I will, separate and apart from 211 and
Yes.
United Community, which are wonderful systems that help with peer coordination and getting people connected to what they need. I want to lean in on our policy space, and given your time in state government and your connection to us, you more than know us in that way. It's also an area that I'm incredibly proud of because as CEO, I formed a chief policy officer position. We have a director that works under there, so we've built out our resources, and I'm incredibly grateful that I have a board of directors that is incredibly supportive of the direction that we've gone in as an organization and how we've grown the organization. But that is really our I think, strongest ingredient in the recipe, so to speak, on how we really get to those social determinants of health, those social drivers. It's through that policy lane. And so, someone that is no longer with the organization but still very engaged in this space used to say that what policy created, programming alone will never fix, or something that's not verbatim, but that's pretty close to verbatim. And it's exactly right. And when I look back at my career, private sector, state government, city government, no truer words could be spoken. I mean, we can program all day long and they're very necessary, but the real changes are going to happen when we actually look at the legislative changes that are needed that really then impact communities in deeper ways. And so that is what we are very intentional around, is making sure that our policy agenda that we set every year, that our board approves as we're, going into legislative sessions on both sides of the river, to advocate for the changes that we think are necessary to affect the folks that rely on us. That's how we really lean into that space and really making sure that our policy agenda is reflecting those changes that are needed to really bring about lasting change in communities. And so that's work we're incredibly proud of.
I'm giddy because you're speaking my language.
Yes, I know. It resonates very strongly with me too. It gets me very excited about what we can affect in an even greater way.
Absolutely. Well, you talked about your experience before United Way in policy, so let's talk about that some.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I've had I guess now a 32-year career. I spent the first 11, 12 years in the corporate sector here in Louisville. I was born and raised here. I really wanted to channel my career experience and opportunity with service. My undergrad degree was in accounting. People are somewhat shocked by that because it's unexpected. They feel like I should have a social services background. That degree has served me very well to understand, running an organization and financing and all of those types of things. But I really wanted to be in a service-oriented field, and so I thank God first and foremost, and just thank the doors and opportunities that have opened for me along the way that allowed me to make that pivot. And I went from the corporate sector into city government, where I was there for 7.5 years. I started off on the financial arm of local government, but then migrated over onto the social services side, intentionally so, and fell in love with it. I mean, I didn't look back. I mean, that immersion into Louisville Metro government's social services side is what thrust me into this nonprofit world. Understanding this ecosystem gave me the opportunity to work broadly across many stakeholders, Metro Council at the time, and others. And then I took that experience and went into state government, where I, served as the commissioner for the Department for Community-Based Services. So I took on child welfare, adult protection, all of those challenges, along with public benefit administration. And, all of that, honestly, really, one, I think whet my appetite for working in the nonprofit space, but also really deepened my appreciation for the nonprofit space, because I saw the limitations of government, and that's, not intended to be, inflammatory or controversial. It just is.
Yeah.
It's just a different industry, and it has its own guardrails and way that you have to work, and of course, then politics and partisanship and all of that influence it. And so you just don't have those same confinements in the nonprofit sector. And you also see again the way the nonprofit sector steps in where government doesn't have the ability to address all of these needs in the way perhaps that are needed to really resolve for them. And certainly in the corporate sector, while they have corporate social responsibility and they support philanthropy, it's just a different sector. And so yeah, it's been a very non-traditional career and route to get to where I am now. But I thank God for each rung of that journey. So yeah.
All right. So I'm wondering, how can people who are watching support the United Way? But let's start with the policy work, and then maybe after the break we'll come back to bigger work. But thinking local, statewide legislative session started this week. Metro Council started back this week. How are ways that people can support you?
Yeah, so I mean, we do in the policy space. I mean, we have a signature day both in Indiana and Kentucky, Live United Day, where we bring our partners and others from community to have an opportunity to engage with elected officials. In addition to that, we do from impact to advocacy events. We do those a few times a year where we work very intentionally to connect the public with elected officials, to give them an opportunity to have their voice heard and to, again, have that connection, because everybody doesn't naturally perhaps know how to step into that arena. Perhaps it can feel intimidating, all the things, and so we help to be a conduit for that. So those are certainly ways that people can get engaged, and within our policy space, it's important for me to add, we also do that in collaboration. I mean, while we certainly are proud of the efforts that we lean into, one, we are very careful to recognize our place in that lane, right? So for as much as we have these pillars, we know that you've got other advocacy groups that are very much very hyper focused on these issues in a way that even we aren't. So we want to be appropriate and complementary when we're in those lanes, so to speak. And so that is very important for us to make sure that we are not infringing in a space that we don't need to be infringing around. And if it is a space that we are in, that we are respectful of who else is in that space and very inclusive, and making sure that we are part of a larger coalition around these advocacy efforts. And so, but those are ways. And so, that we are working to continue to connect folks to the public. I mean, we also have a pool of dollars that we have used to give out to support things such as voter registration, and and especially in this moment when you look at what's coming along, making sure that people, regardless of wherever you choose to direct your political affiliation, but participate in the process. You need to be an engaged citizen. And so we work to promote some of that awareness and encouragement as well. Yeah.
And y'all, I want you to know how important it is when you talk about voter registration that, like you said, regardless of your party, because for Louisville, we're going to have our first nonpartisan mayoral and metro council races. So we want everyone who's eligible to vote to vote, because this will be the first time any of us can vote in the primary, regardless of our political party.
That's right.
I'm glad that you brought that up. Well, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and I want to ask you how folks can be in touch with you if they want to be supportive, other ways that folks can be supportive. But thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll see you in just a moment.
Through every note, every performance, the arts connect us. The arts connect us through joy and through awe, bridging cultures and generations. From intimate theaters to the grandest stages, the arts bring us together, reminding us that we're never truly alone. When we experience the arts, we experience each other. Kentucky Performing Arts. The arts connect us.
Hey, I know you're watching the live stream right now, but I want to take a moment to tell you to check out this new book right here over my shoulder. Believe me, it'll be worth it.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to Ask Attica with our special guest, Adria Johnson, with Metro United Way, President and CEO of Metro United Way. So you actually responded to my question about policy, which I
Okay.
really appreciate. What I'd like to know is how can folks get in touch with you, and what are other ways that people can be supportive?
Yeah. So at Metro United Way, we always say, give, advocate, volunteer, time, talent, and treasure, right? You know what your capacity to give in those various ways are. I, was raised in very meager circumstances, but am grateful for the parents that I had that drilled, we are here to serve others. And so I would just ask one that people, if you would like more information about what we do, would like to know how to get engaged with that. We always need volunteers in varieties of ways. We certainly need to be resourced to continue doing what we're doing, and certainly want you to be engaged. MetroUnitedWay.org, wealth of information. The other thing that I would say is, Louisville is a community full of many nonprofit organizations that are on the front lines doing incredible work to support this community. And they all need that. They all need that time, talent, and treasure mix thereof. And so whether it's United Way or another cause, whatever is near and dear to you that you feel aligned to, and those causes that you want to lend your voice to, get engaged. All of them need support. And so that would be, my encouragement is just to find a way to give back. And then I think also the other thing that I would say is, we're living in unprecedented, concerning times. I think we all feel the division. We all feel the incivility. All the more reason for us to be in community, uplifting and supporting each other.
Yes.
So however you can do that, be about the business of doing that, because we need that more than ever right now.
That's right. So MetroUnitedWay.org.
Yes,
Okay.
MetroUnitedWay.org.
Bookmark that, y'all.
Please.
And donate. And listen, today's Friday. You give $5 today,
right.
$5 Friday.
That's right.
Every bit helps because
Yes, it does.
it's your capacity. If your capacity is $5, it has the same value as someone's $5,000
Amen.
capacity.
That's right.
So is there anything that I may have missed that you wanted to share? Anything upcoming?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
I really appreciate the opportunity just to, raise awareness to the work that we do, how we show up in communities. Again, really encourage people to visit that website. There is a lot that we do that even sessions like this don't really give us the opportunity to really go in depth around. I'm always accessible, happy to sit down and have a conversation with anybody, as is anybody on my team. So yeah, just reach out and reach in, I guess I would say.
Fantastic. Well, my last question is, the show is called Ask Attica.
Yeah.
So are there any questions that you have for me? Anything you want to ask me?
Oh my gosh, I would just say, what can we do to support you?
Oh, I love that question.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is a gift.
Oh,
I'd like to give back.
Yes. Well, have your team share the podcast once.
We'll certainly do that.
Stay live streams
of course.
posted, and then we'll keep moving forward. Let me know if there are ways that Stay Live Streams can support you, or I can support you.
Yes, we'll do that.
The thing is, we have to do this together.
Yes, we do.
Yes, so
happy to.
Metro United Way gets lifted up, Ask Attica gets lifted up.
Got it.
All right.
Got it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you so much.
This was a pleasure.
Okay,
Same.
Excellent. All right, y'all. We'll see you next time on Ask Attica.
Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on State Live Streams.
We will continue to provide updates as we have more information.
And you're joining me today on State Live Stream.